frenzy over Jared Kushner's alleged back-channeling with Russia.
A source close to the matter is saying that it was the Russians who first proposed the idea, not Kushner.
We've had the back channel connections with adversaries for generations. I don't quite understand where's the crime.
Russia, Russia, Russia. What possible relevance to everyone's everyday life is whether Jared Kushner met with this person or that person?
Journalists in Washington, D.C. are willful participants in a coordinated leak campaign where you get selective information.
It's not about being unfair. They're trying to destroy him. They have got to end these leaks because they are damaging the presidency, and the president's losing blood by the pint on this.
Tiger Woods says he did not do it. The golf great claiming that his DUI arrest in Florida was because of an unexpected reaction to his medication.
6-year-old Christian Jacobs, who stole our hearts, and it would seem the president's as well this Memorial Day.
Photo of a really neat story we're going to highlight later on in the show from Memorial Day. That child right there, dressed like his father, who was lost serving this country. They were at Arlington, and there was the president to greet him. A pretty neat story.
Right. The president's been pro-military from day one. Even his greatest detractor would say that. And he's pro-reforming the VA from day two. And the other thing is he finds himself talking on Memorial Day, and he was brilliant yesterday. Whoever wrote that speech deserves a raise. Yeah. And then he, of course, authentically went down there and met with people and families. And there's another great story about a meeting with a family where the mom says, you know, my son knew he wasn't coming back from Afghanistan, and she says, I hope people remember I lived. And now he said that to the president. She said that to the president. The president said, we're going to remember him forever. She goes, you're the first person to actually say that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's in Section 60, which is the section of Arlington of the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. A crowded place yesterday.
Yeah. Let us know what you did yesterday. Were you thinking about your loved ones? Did they fight in the military? Thank you for your service. I know that you did 2 tours.
It's all about the guys that didn't come home, you know, and that's what Memorial Day, what you remember.
I think my grandfather was on a ship out in the Pacific during World War II, and a kamikaze plane was coming toward their ship. And they all looked up and they saw the plane coming toward them, and they said, this is it. This is the end. The kamikaze pilot looked at my grandfather and all the men on the top of the ship and did a peace sign, and then drove his plane into the ocean next to the ship.
Yeah, I watched the movie Midway yesterday, which is about the Battle of Midway, and kamikaze pilots like nothing you've ever seen. Suicide bombers in World War II, basically.
And now we're still getting them individually.
Yeah.
Came home from the war and then had 2 children, and one's my mother. So glad that kamikaze pilot didn't take down that ship. Anyway, let us know what you were doing. Send us your emails. In the meantime, we're going to hand it over to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's get you caught up before you leave the house right now. In just a few hours, dash cam video of Tiger Woods' arrest expected to be released. And officers telling TMZ you'll see him acting belligerent and arrogant, refusing to take a breathalyzer. Woods says he wasn't drunk when he was busted in Jupiter, Florida at 3 in the morning. He said he had an unexpected reaction to his medication. The 41-year-old releasing a statement saying, quote, I would like to apologize with all of my heart to my family, friends, and the fans. I expect more from myself. I will do everything in my power to ensure this never happens again. Psychiatrist Dr. Keith Abloh joined us discussing what could be behind his fall from grace.
Something keeps dragging this fellow down, and it's always the same in my business. It's an unaddressed internal conflict, pain from the past, questions about whether you're worthwhile.
Back in April, Woods had his 4th back surgery. Those issues have cost him most of the last 4 years of his career. Take a look at this. This flying on the House floor in Texas after a GOP lawmaker calls ICE to report unhinged liberal protesters. Things getting physical over Sanctuary City's legislation. Hundreds of protesters first flooding the Capitol, disrupting the House session with chants and yelling. Many of them bust in from outside of the state. The disruption causing members on the floor to get caught up in the emotion, pushing and shoving each other.
There was a threat made from Representative Rinaldi to put a bullet in one of my colleagues' head.
We both, what? What do you mean? You did what? He said, yeah, I called ICE. And then he said, F them.
You say things to incite people, okay? And that's exactly what I did.
This, the first reaction to a new state law cracking down on cities trying to protect illegal immigrants. It goes into effect in September. ICE is claiming responsibility for a deadly explosion outside an ice cream shop. At least 15 people are dead and 24 hurt after a targeted attack on families in Baghdad. Surveillance video showing the car bomb lighting up the night like a fireball. Chaos and panic in the busy streets. Many Muslims out late breaking their fast for Ramadan. Hours later, another car bomb exploded nearby during rush hour, killing 9. So far, no one's claimed responsibility. This is an amazing story. A 19-year-old U.S. Army soldier gets stuck in a Texas airport with a standby ticket, unsure if he'd make it home for the holiday weekend. And that's when a complete stranger decides to shell out $350 to send Keaton Tilson home to Illinois. The exchange, as you can imagine, emotional.
Just shook hands at first, and then he walked away, and then he came back and asked if he could hug me. And I think we both had to fight back the tears after that. It was pennies on the dollar compared to what I got back after getting that hug.
Tilson says he feels if it wasn't for that man, he would still be at the airport instead of with his family. He hadn't been home since Christmas. Guys, I actually have chills. Like, stories like that give you the chills. It just makes you realize how wonderful people can be.
It's so true.
Very cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony.
Absolutely, because you have that spirit of patriotism as well. That's why you have that reaction, in my humble opinion. Meanwhile, thanks, Jillian. It's 6 minutes after the hour. One of the big stories over the last 4 days, and people are running with a Reuters report, which had undisclosed sources that may or may not be true, that Jared Kushner did something extraordinary, went up to an ambassador of Russia and said, not only do I want to set up a back channel, I'd like to do it from the Russian embassy, which, if that on its face, of course is a big story. But the problem is, the White House is pushing back on it.
Anonymous sources.
Jared Kushner says, I cannot wait to tell my side of the story, but I happen to be caught up in the first presidential road trip.
There's so many questions here. What are the facts? That's what we want to know. Was back channeling, was that ever discussed? Was that Russia's idea? Did it actually happen? Until we know the facts, mainstream media is having a heyday with this. And most people at home, they can't keep it all straight.
Of course,
Fox News pushed back.
That Fox News did push back, as did the president. He's defending his son-in-law to the New York Times, saying this. He said, I have total confidence in him, Jared Kushner. He's respected by virtually everyone and is working on programs that will save our country billions.
Well, let me tell you what Catherine Herridge found out. It says, during the meeting with the Russians, the idea of using a secure line between the Trump administration and Russia, not Kushner, was Russia's, not Kushner's. A source familiar with the matter told us that follows a recent report from the Washington Post alleging that Kushner, of course, wanted to set up his own one. So to set up a back channel, people say, well, what does that mean? I don't do this for a living. What it means is, like you do with almost everybody, like that Hillary Clinton did with Oman in creating communications, setting up communications with Iran, who are killing our guys. How about the story that was brought forward this weekend by Kimberly Strassel of the Wall Street Journal that said in 2008, candidate Obama sent this William... I forgot his last name. He sent him over to Iran to say if candidate Obama becomes President Obama in person on an enemy's foreign soil, it's not foreign to them, said if I become president, expect to have a friend in the White House, just to paraphrase. Now, how does that feel? Where was the scandal? Where was the Washington Post headlines?
And Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism at the time as well. Still, indeed, today. Interesting. Well, President Trump up early this morning also tweeting about some of the news about Russia as well. He just tweeted this 3 minutes ago saying, Russian officials must be laughing at the U.S. and how a lame excuse for why the Dems lost the election has taken over the fake news. And doesn't it feel like this has taken over the news?
Kellyanne Conway, who's counselor to President Trump, joins us live from the White House this morning. Good morning to you, Kellyanne.
Good morning.
The president clearly defending his son-in-law. Set the record straight for us. What are the facts?
Well, the facts are that Jared Kushner has said from the very beginning he's willing to go and share any information that he has with Congress, with the FBI. And as you heard General McMaster, as you heard Secretary Kelly over this weekend say, they're not concerned. Back channels like this are the regular course of business. And that's really all that we know. And I think it's very important to recognize that the president has expressed full confidence in Jared Kushner and also went on to note the considerable progress and very large, important portfolio that Jared oversees here at the White House. At the end of this month, he'll be hosting another major meeting with tech, the heads of tech companies, for example, to really try to figure out how we can improve efficiencies and cost savings in the government. Obviously, the relationships that Jared was able to establish during transition helped develop this phenomenal international trip that they just came back from. And I think one of the great measures that we have as to how successful this trip for the president really was is how little talk it's getting still by the mainstream media. That's usually a measurement that I put forth. And it's true. And Jared also is responsible for following up on different elements of that trip. But he's always said that he'll be fully cooperative with any information that he has.
So do you back up the Fox News report that said it was the Russians that reached out to Jared Kushner, and it was not the other way around, so the Reuters report being wrong? And what about today's New York Times report that say Kushner reached out to a banker named Gorkov who's on a U.S. blacklist?
I'm not going to comment on any of that because there's no reason to, frankly. We know that there have been many news reports very recently that had the facts wrong. If you go back to a couple of weeks ago, you'll notice that one paper in particular, 3 times in a row, relied upon information that was immediately batted down as false. And this entire thing is just a rush to judgment. We've been talking about this for about 8 months.
I know.
And yet you have Senator Feinstein saying she has not changed her position, that there's evidence of collusion. You have Senator Graham saying as much. You have former CIA director Mr. Brennan in testimony last week refusing to make that leap, that conclusion. And so I know people want to confuse them. I know, look, it's a lot easier to scream Russia, Russia, Russia all day and even have Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden out there talking about the election.
Yeah. I just think that the pushback specifically would be to the White House advantage, and it seems like you did it through our Catherine Herridge yesterday. Meanwhile, there's some other stories.
Yeah, there is. Kellyanne, there's reports in the media as well, always, about shakeups in the White House. This morning, some pretty specific ones coming out, potentially that White House Communications Director Mike Dubke could be on the way out. Can you give us any information that's verifiable about things that might be changing at the White House?
Well, I went back and looked at some of my notes. The very first time I was ever asked about somebody being pushed out of the White House was January 23rd. We had been here for 3 whole days. And so there's been a story a minute about that. It's easier to cover that than, I guess, learning the finer points of health care reform and tax reform and infrastructure and ISIS in retreat. Having said that, the president has always surrounded himself with people who are able to work together and in a collaborative fashion, are able to deal with the news of the day, but also think more long-term and strategically. I did not know Mike Dubke before he came on as communications director. I did not know him well. I know he's worked very hard here. But people in administrations tend to leave on their own volition as well. They tend to find that working 18-hour days in different environments are maybe not what's best suited for them. In terms of, quote, staff shakeups, I always read things that simply aren't true. I work here every day. It's much more collaborative than people realize. I think that we're constantly being told by people who have never worked in any White House, let alone this White House, exactly what's going on here.
All right, we have on the bottom of the screen that Mike Dubke is out as the White House Communications Director. Can you confirm that, yes or no?
So what I will say is that he has expressed his desire to leave the White House and made very clear that he would see through the president's international trip and come to work every day and work hard even through that trip because there was much to do here back at the White House. I also would note, because many people, again, misreported this, that Sean Spicer is expected back at the podium today for an on-the-record briefing at 2 p.m.
Will there be less briefings?
Well, there will always be White House briefings, but as you've seen, that we've had cabinet secretaries and other administration officials going up to the podium and being part of the briefings when the issue sets that they're working on are actually part of the news of the day. Gotcha. And that's gone very effectively as well. Not every briefing has to be on camera either. It doesn't. There are many audio briefings that many press secretaries
Kellyanne,
in the past have given.
Thank you so much. Television.
Welcome back to Fox and Friends. Some quick headlines for you. This afternoon, the Pentagon will fire off a long-range interceptor over the Pacific Ocean, testing its capabilities of shooting down a missile. It comes as North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un vows to send a bigger, quote, gift package to the U.S. after a series of launches. I'm sure it will be a wonderful gift. The latest launch that they conducted landing off the coast of Japan. And our second story, a massive volcano erupting in Alaska, triggering the highest aviation warning. Look at that massive cloud. The volcano sits under the path of many flights headed from Asia to North America. The Alaska Volcano Observatory says the eruption lasted about 50 minutes, and its ash cloud reached between 35 and 45,000 feet. Yeah, that'll mess with some flights. Ainsley, over to you.
All right, thank you, Pete. Well, new reports this morning, the resistance is not embracing a Hillary Clinton 2020 run, but the mainstream media already appears to be backing her. Watch this.
Hillary Clinton is doing something that she probably does best, which is sort of encourage people to do more.
She's trying to reflect the sense of humor that people had found appealing when she was in office and in the early months of the campaign.
I think that Secretary Clinton is sort of finding her groove post-election.
Finding her groove post-election, but is her presence just keeping the Democrats stuck in the past? Joining us now for a fair and balanced debate, President of Americans United for Change, Brad Woodhouse, and his brother, the executive director of the North Carolina GOP, Dallas Woodhouse. Good morning to you. Great to see you, Brad. Good morning. All right, so Brad, I'll start with you as the Democrat on this panel. Is it true? Do you think she'll run again in 2020?
I don't think there's any real indication that she's going to run again in 2020. Other Democrats are emerging. I will say this, though. I think the person that got the most votes in the last presidential election, an election that people were captivated by, I'm not surprised that the media is paying attention to her when she speaks out. And I think she has every right to speak out. But I went through her Twitter feed and I looked at her activity most recently. I mean, she's not out bashing President Trump. She's not planting a flag as a future presidential candidate. But I think her voice can be heard, will be heard. And frankly, given her performance in the last election, she got more votes than the current president. I think her voice should be heard.
Well, Dallas, she didn't win. She's run twice in the past. Do you think we'll see her run again for a third time? And if so, would she be successful?
Well, I don't know, but Ansley, as a Republican, I'm just telling you, we need more Hillary Clinton. We need a Hillary Clinton cable channel, Hillary Clinton on XM. We need to even get one of them old XFL football helmets that have a camera in it so we can tune in and see what she's looking around when she's wandering out in the woods.
Be careful what you ask for, Dallas.
More Hillary. She only had a half a century to make people believe in her. She just hadn't had enough time. A half a century hadn't been long enough. She needs a little more time. So please keep putting her out there for our benefit.
Brad, who should we be watching? Who do you think would step up to the plate?
Well, look, I think there are a lot of really talented Democrats. And remember, there are two versions of this. There are a new generation of Democrats, and then there are potentially just new faces. I mean, Donald Trump was not a new generation of Republican, but he was a new face. But I look at people like Kamala Harris, who's a new senator from California, Adam Schiff, who's leading the House Intelligence investigation of Donald Trump, Cory Booker from New Jersey. I mean, I think we're blessed on the Democratic side with a very deep bench and a good crop of young generation of people who could potentially run for president or be on a vice presidential ticket. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape. But I encourage Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is out there. She has started. She started a C4. She started a political group. She's funding groups that are involved in the resistance. I think
you say she's not bashing President Trump, but now you're saying she's part of the resistance.
Well, what I'm saying is she's helping progressive groups find their voice. Find their voice to oppose efforts to repeal Obamacare. Find their voice to encourage equal pay for equal work for women.
Well,
and I think that's
Dallas Republicans
exactly
would say they're trying to that she is part of the resistance, trying to take down this president, and that when she has spoken recently, she is out there taunting this president. So, Dallas, what's your response to the way that she's handling this? Your brother says that she's not out there bashing, but at the same time, she wants to be part of the resistance.
Well, let me just say this. From our perspective, it's probably helpful because it reminds everybody that so much of these ridiculous Russia allegations and everything else is political.
Ridiculous, Dallas. There's been a special counsel appointed.
Reminder of that. that they want to keep relitigating an election they lost. So I'm in favor, like I said, the Hillary Clinton cable channel, XM.
Hold on a minute.
Hold on a minute. So we can watch her in real time.
We got to go, guys. We're going to leave it there.
Dallas took this from Hillary Clinton to Russia. There's not a special counsel at the Justice Department because the Democrats were unhappy with the election. It's because something happened. Political. It's because something happened, Dallas.
Political.
It's the FBI, Dallas.
Brad, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have a good one. All right, the danger might not be over after the Manchester bombing. Is there another explosive out there? What cops are saying about that picture right there. And an incredible moment, a little boy dressed like his fallen father getting a handshake and a high five from President Trump. That boy and his mother are here live with their Memorial Day story. Your very special day after Memorial Day shot of the morning. That little boy right there, his name is Christian Jacobs. He's 6 years old, getting, as you can see, a high five from President Donald Trump.
All right, the boy and his mom got the surprise visit at Arlington National Cemetery yesterday.
They were there visiting the gravesite of Christian's father, Marine Sergeant Christopher Jacobs. He died in a training accident in 2011. Christian was just 8 months old. And we have the honor this morning, the opportunity really, to speak to both of them today. One of them looking particularly sharp. Again, this is Gold Star wife Brittany Jacobs and 6-year-old Christian Jacobs in full replica Marine uniform from Virginia Beach. Good morning to you both. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, if you would, tell us a little bit about your husband, the man that you loved, who ultimately lost his life in service of our country.
He was a very outgoing person. He loved life. He loved to hunt. He loved to fish. He enjoyed riding his quads, and he lived life on the edge when it comes to riding his four-wheeler, but he was a very, very loving person.
Brittany and Christian, we are so sorry for your loss. Tell us how you got from, you were obviously there at the cemetery yesterday. How did you end up meeting the president?
This little guy right here pretty much just ran up to him.
And what did he say to you, Christian?
Well, he said
what did you say to him?
I said, do you want to come and see my dad? And he said, sure. And he came over there, and then I said, hello. This is the pillow that a lady made me. And then I started showing the pictures to him.
And
he started showing him all the pictures.
And you said he had a pillow with him that a lady made for him?
Yes.
Yes.
And Christian, did you recognize the president? You've probably seen him on TV. How was it pretty cool to meet him?
Yes.
What did he say to you?
He said, this is great.
Yeah, that sounds like President Trump. Now, Christian, let me ask you something. Why is it important for you to wear a uniform like your dad?
Well, my mom makes me wear it.
I tell you, you look great in it, and you look a lot like that guy
really
if you're seeing a monitor on the side of the screen.
There's so drafted.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear that.
We were splitting the screen with a picture of your dad. You guys look so much alike in uniform.
No, I did not look just like my mom. I looked just like Christopher, my daddy.
That's what he said. You look just like your daddy right there.
Just like your daddy on the screen.
Yeah, we are so proud of your daddy, Christian. He is a hero.
Yes.
Brittany, what was it like for you yesterday to see your child, your son? You've been through so much. What was it like to see your son being greeted by the president?
Oh, it was surreal. It was crazy. We didn't expect it. We were hoping we'd get to see him there that day, and it was just amazing. It was just amazing because seeing him so excited to just carry someone over to see his daddy. He told him, he's like, do you want to meet my daddy? And he's like, he's right here. He's buried over here. And he just went for it. And it was just it was sweet. It was innocent. And he loved it. He was so proud of him.
Christian, you've captured the heart. Oh, go ahead.
What she means is it's awesome.
That is a 6-year-old interpretation. I love it. Christian, obviously you've captured the hearts of a lot of people in America. What do you want to be when you grow up?
A Marine.
There we go.
Well, you got the uniform. Just keep taking it out until you're full grown. Brittany, Brittany, just real quick, how important is it for you to keep your husband alive in your son's mind?
It's very important. Chris wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want it any other way. His dad loved him. He wanted to be a father, and he was excited, and he looked forward to the days of getting to take him hunting and fishing. And now I'll be the one that does all that with him.
And he was fighting for freedom.
That's right. So yeah, it's important.
What a wonderful example of what should be done on Memorial Day. Thank you for keeping the memory of your husband alive. And little Christian, you look good, buddy. Yeah, I'm quite sure you will be a Marine.
I'm sure I will, too.
God bless you both. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, there's also an educational fund for Christian where the family is taking donations and support. For more info on that, you can go to the Fox and Friends website.
And please do just that.
That's
because Marines don't they don't live a wealthy life where they can just count on everything being paid for the rest, especially when you lose your life in battle.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Very cool.
We thank you all who have fought for our country.
Great reminder. And we'll toss it over now to Jillian Mealy for some more of our headlines.
Hard to follow up with. Oh my gosh, he was so adorable. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Take a look. This blue suitcase could help bust the Manchester bombers' terror ring. British police releasing this photo showing Salman Abedi with the luggage hours before his deadly concert attack. It's unclear what's inside, but they don't think it's dangerous. Police, though, hoping it leads to new clues as they work to trace his steps in the days before the bombing. Right now, 14 people are in custody in connection to the attack that left 22 people dead. A sports writer driving his career into the ditch for a tweet about the Indianapolis 500. After Takuma Sato won the race, Denver Post columnist Terry Fry tweeted, quote, "Nothing specifically personal, but I'm very uncomfortable with the Japanese driver winning the Indianapolis 500 during Memorial Day weekend." The tweet was deleted, but the damage was already done. Fry now fired by the Denver Post, the paper calling his tweet disrespectful and unacceptable. So remember the grumpy face that the Pope made when meeting President Trump? It turns out he makes it all the time. Just yesterday, the pontiff giving Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau the exact same frown as the pair posed for pictures at the Vatican. And even President Obama got the same look back in 2014 with then Secretary of State John Kerry.